Welcome back to This Day in Scottish History. I'm your host, Colin MacDonald. Today we delve in a dark chapter in Scotland's past. On this day in January 1349, the Black Death reached Scotland, spreading death and despair across the land. This pandemic, which had already ravaged much of Europe, profoundly affected Scottish society, altering the course of its history. The Black Death, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, arrived in Europe in 1347, brought by trading ships that docked in Italian ports. From there, it swept through the continent with astonishing speed, claiming millions of lives. By early 1349, it breached Scotland's borders, likely through trade routes connecting the British Isles or from infected ships docking at Scottish ports. The first major outbreaks in Scotland occurred in densely populated towns such as Edinburgh, Perth, and Aberdeen. These urban centres, with their crowded, unsanitary conditions, provided fertile ground for the disease to spread. Symptoms included fever, chills, painful swelling of lymph nodes, buboes, and blackened skin, giving the plague its infamous name. Death often came within days. Scotland was not spared the catastrophic impact of the plague. Estimates suggest that anywhere between a third and a half of the population perished within a few years. Entire villages were wiped out, and the rural countryside, which relied heavily on agricultural labour, was devastated. Food shortages followed as fields lay untended and livestock succumbed to neglect or disease. In the towns, the plague brought chaos. Mass graves became a grim necessity as local burial grounds filled beyond capacity. Clergy who administered last rites and cared for the sick were among the most affected, leaving communities spiritually adrift. Trade slowed to a trickle, and the economic structure of Scotland teetered on the brink of collapse. The Black Death's impact on Scottish society was profound. With so many lives lost, labour shortages became acute. Survivors found themselves in a position to demand better wages and working conditions, planting the seeds for long-term shifts in the feudal system. Landowners, desperate to maintain their estates, offered better terms to tenants, subtly altering the balance of power. Politically, Scotland was already in turmoil during this period. The country was still recovering from the wars of independence against England, and the plague exacerbated the instability. A truce with England, forged in 1348, had provided a brief respite from conflict. However, as the disease ravaged both nations, the Scottish nobility grappled with diminished manpower and resources to govern effectively. The Black Death also brought fear and superstition. Many saw the plague as divine punishment for sins, leading to a surge in religious fervour. Processions of flagellants, groups of people who whipped themselves in penance, marched through towns. In some cases, this fervour turned into paranoia, and certain groups, such as lepers or perceived outsiders, were scapegoated for spreading the disease. It took decades for Scotland to recover from the Black Death. The demographic collapse reshaped the economy, with survivors benefiting from increased opportunities due to labour shortages. Feudalism, already under strain, began to erode, laying the groundwork for societal changes that would unfold in the centuries to come. Culturally, the Black Death left an indelible mark. Themes of mortality and the fragility of life became prevalent in art, literature, and religious practices, echoing the trauma of the pandemic. The Black Death's arrival in Scotland in January 1349 stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of human societies in the face of nature's fury. It was a period of immense suffering, but also one of resilience and eventual renewal. The pandemic's effects reverberated through Scotland's history, shaping its people, its institutions, and its future. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Scotland's past. Join us tomorrow for another chapter in This Day in Scottish History. I'm Colin MacDonald. Haste ye back.